scientific methodology, the Big Bang, and evolution. Today, we will all become scientists. Who believes in science? Who believes in facts? Who believes in the Big Bang and evolution and can explain them? Who believes in God? Who believes in God and science? Who believes Genesis is a metaphorical representation of scientific facts? Who is confused? Those who have cognitive dissonance. Those who believe in two apparent opposing views at the same time. Thank you. Today, we will deal with only scientific facts. We are not going to reference the Bible at all for any justification for anything we will discuss today. We will be using the scientific method to have a look at facts. The questions before were good, as it helps us to be clear with what we know and clear about our intentions of why we are listening to this today. In order to talk about and understand the science, we have to understand the scientific method. As we all have different levels of education and understanding, let's be clear about what the scientific method is. The purpose of the scientific method is to answer a question or solve a problem of something we have observed. After doing some research on existing answers or solutions, a hypothesis is developed. A hypothesis is a statement that tentatively supposes, that is an educated guess of the outcome to what is being researched. Then an experiment is designed to test the hypothesis. Robust experiments are designed so that what is being researched is observable and measurable. Remember, observable and measurable. In this way, data is collected so that it can be clearly analyzed and a conclusion can be made. The conclusion will either find the hypothesis to be true or null. So when is a hypothesis become a theory and a scientific fact? When the hypothesis has been repeatedly confirmed through observation and measurement. Meaning, after repeated experiments have been completed and have had the same conclusion, the hypothesis is said to be true, and what has been observed and measured repeatedly, those words again, is scientific fact. Consensus within the science community is established. However, a theory can never be a scientific fact. These are two different concepts. A fact is the repeatedly measured observation. Here is an example. There is light during the daytime and everyone agrees. A theory is the explanation of the observation. Here is an example. There is light during the daytime because of the sun, and everyone agrees. A theory can never be proven. To consider a theory a fact is against scientific methodology, as all things in science are always questionable. Nothing in science is unquestionable. So you can have the facts, and the facts are based on observations, but a theory is an explanation and never proven, and is never an unquestionable fact. Science allows for the non-absolute. Nothing is ever 100% in science. Let's start from the beginning. Let's start from the Big Bang Theory. So, who can explain the Big Bang Theory? Let's keep it simple. In 1927, astronomer Georges Lemaitre hypothesized the universe began as a single point and has gradually stretched and expanded to become as big as it is now, and that it is continuing to expand. 2 years later, Edward Hubble observed that the galaxies were moving away from us and thus supported Lemaitre's hypothesis. Science theorized that the Big Bang happened 13.8 billion years ago. When the universe began to expand, it was full of hot, tiny particles mixed with light and energy. These particles came together as the universe cooled, forming atoms, and over time, everything we see today, including stars and galaxies. So what's wrong with this theory? What can we question from the onset? According to the Big Bang Theory, the universe was created from a single point. This point is called the initial singularity. This initial singularity was a prediction from Albert Einstein's 1915 general theory of relativity. Let's be clear, the initial singularity is a prediction. Currently, no scientific theory, neither the general theory of relativity nor quantum mechanics, explains singularity. Currently, there is no evidence, nothing measurable or observable, that singularity occurs at the start of the universe or in black holes. So the evidence does not exist. The Big Bang Theory is not a theory. It is not measurable, observable, or repeatable. It definitely hasn't been repeated. There is no scientific consensus. Therefore, the Big Bang Theory is a philosophy. It is not a scientific theory and not based on any facts. Who believes in the Big Bang Theory now? It's not based on anything factual. The Big Bang Theory is based on mathematical tentative suppositions. Did you notice that the Big Bang Theory was created in 1927 after the general theory of relativity, which was published in 1915? Do you find this unusual? I do. Back to the scientific method. It is the question or the problem that promotes scientific investigation to formulate the hypothesis, rather than the theory leading backwards to find the observation and measurements. This is akin to the solution finding the problem. This is biased. Let's talk about the theory of evolution. Who here believes in the theory of evolution? Who here is a monkey man? In 1859, the book On the Origin of the Species was published, written by Charles Darwin. In this book was proposed a theory of evolution by natural selection. Again, this book has no basis in the scientific method, and therefore it is an error of Charles Darwin to call this hypothesis a theory, as he had no evidence to support his hypothesis as a theory. He himself states in the book that he has no evidence. Again, measurable, repeatable, observable data that he had collected to conclude his hypothesis is true. Darwin had no data, but just a tentative supposition, his educated guess. He published his philosophy, not science. So what did Darwin propose? The theory of evolution by natural selection is the full name. This theory states to explain through the process of natural selection where organisms that are better adapted to an environment will survive and reproduce over many generations. Natural selection leads to a change of inherited characteristics within a population. This results in the formation of a new species. This is evolution. Darwin had evidence of natural selection. Yes, natural selection is scientific fact. Natural selection is observable, repeatable, and measurable. It has scientific consensus. Natural selection that leads to a new species, hence evolution, is not scientific fact. Darwin has merged the evidence of natural selection with his tentative supposition, his educated guess of how different species originated. Let's be clear. Natural selection is scientific fact. Survival of the fittest is true. Evolution or origin of the species through natural selection has no evidence. There is no data that has been collected to conclude this claim to be true. There is no data that is observable, measurable, and repeatable through the scientific method. Natural selection has not seemed to produce new species. Species have not been observed, measured repeatedly to evolve into other species. So the theory of evolution through natural selection in scientific methodology is a hypothesis, akin to a philosophy and not fact.